Hello and welcome. My name is Errity Green and this is Wise Women Oracle and Tarot. And today I am bringing you a pick a card reading on who are you really and why. So this is going to be focused on perhaps who you are at the deeper level, either behind the mask, behind the persona, and or your authentic self. So we'll see what comes through and why. So I encourage you to stick around. If you find you enjoy this reading, do like, subscribe, press the bell icon. That way you receive notifications every single time a new reading pops up. If you want to get to know more about me, my work, personal readings, as well as my spiritual mentorship academy, where I am now offering certification as a professional spiritual mentor, you can check out erritygreen.com/theacademy. I will also link that below. And do check out my other YouTube channels, Psychic True Crime and Wise Women Television, both of which are linked below. Without further delay, I will place a picture up now of your 3 card piles to choose from today. All right, card pile 1, who are you really? So the first couple things that are coming up here is the energy of like being capable of anything, fertile to create anything, be anything, capability, fertility, ripeness, abundance, like really having the ability to do and create, achieve, succeed at whatever it is that you set your mind to. I feel like in one form or another, you are far bigger, far more powerful, far more creative, far more abundant than you give yourself credit for. I feel like perhaps you see yourself with sort of the, there's like beer goggles when it comes to seeing someone who's attractive, who you might not otherwise think is attractive. And then it's sort of like lack of self-worth goggles where you see yourself as less than you are. But it's saying, who are you really? It's saying you're all powerful. You have all the power. You're much more creative, abundant than you currently think or even probably could imagine. It's sort of the energy of like, you don't give yourself enough credit or you don't see yourself as powerfully as you really are. Meaning perhaps there are changes in your life that you want to make, or perhaps that maybe you've given up on a dream, or you tell yourself you can't have something or can't do something. And the implication here by this reading is that no, in fact, you can. You're far more abundant and capable than you realize. Now, this doesn't necessarily just mean that, if you don't have something, you're being assured you can create it. Sometimes it also means that you have a lot more going for you and you have a lot more to be grateful for than you're currently giving attention to or credit to. So you might be someone who sees everything with those same filters on of less than, of limitation, of scarcity, of whatever, not enough-ness. And perhaps if you feel not enough, then you then do the same thing when you look at your external reality and it's always not enough, not enough, not enough, not enough, when in fact it may very well be enough. You might be far more abundant than you realize. You might be saying, I'm not abundant, or I'm not successful, or I don't have this or whatever, because I don't have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or this hasn't happened, or this kind of outcome or result hasn't happened, or I haven't secured this thing that I've been wanting or been working toward. But ultimately, if you were to look around at your life or yourself, you'd be like, without that lens on of not enough, you would very quickly realize that you actually have quite a lot. And it doesn't just have to be material things. It just means that there are many blessings and reasons to be grateful in your life that you might not otherwise see on a regular basis. And so it's reminding you how abundant, how rich you really are, how fertile, how creative you really are, how capable, how competent you really are. Not only of what you can achieve or do or experience in terms of your potential, but also what's already here. And you will either fall in both of those camps or one. So like it's way easier to say one or both camps. You'll fall in there. Yeah, you're not seeing yourself for the totality of all that you are. It's recognizing your true power. It's seeing yourself in the highest light. It's seeing yourself in your highest wisdom, your higher self or highest self, if you like to consider it or sort of conceptualize it that way. It's like too often you see yourself or maybe even your life experience through the eyes of the ego. There's nothing wrong with that, but the sort of the self with a little s. But that part of us, it tends to be more limited, tends to be more blinded, tends to be more unaware, tends to be more sort of seeing through the filter of the past or old wounding or old trauma or old challenges. And then it's very difficult to see everything for what it actually is in this moment. And it's saying, but, oh my gosh, if you saw with your higher self, what you would see, what beauty you would see, what abundance you would see, what vast riches you would see. And not just what you would see out here, but there is something here about seeing who you are really, right? Which is what the name of this reading is. Really, you are this soul, this true self, high self, divine being. You are much more powerful than you realize, much more capable, creative, all the words we've already shared, all those descriptors and adjectives. It's just like, you're so much bigger than you give yourself credit for. And if only you knew, if only you would see it, perceive it, sense it, know it, feel it. And so the question might even be, so what if you are? If you were this being, well, and you are, but let's just play with this for a second. If you were this being, what might that mean? What might that imply? What would that mean about you? What would it mean about your life? How would your life look different? How would it change? What would change? Would anything change? Perhaps not, perhaps yes. But realizing your bigness, realizing who you really are, your power. So let's see what else is here. Yeah, so again, I feel like at times you get caught up in old wounding, childhood trauma. I think you see yourself as lacking when you are far greater than what you're able to see. And I feel like for many of you, or most of you actually, most of you, you're seeing it this way because of your conditioning, because of the way that you were defined, perceived, labeled, or understood as a child, or at least many of your earlier years, most of your earlier years. And so you see yourself that way. And that's ultimately not true. What was being told to you and projected upon you was not your truth, but you inherit it as your truth, have adopted it as your truth, and then you behave as that identity. But this was the projection of somebody else, maybe your parent, your family, school, whoever labeled you, however they labeled you. It's like you adopted that, became that, but is it really you? And it's like, no, it's not. This could also, I think probably for most of you, or at least many of you, it has something to do with family history. You might look at the roles and the hats people play, sort of the natural dynamics that come out in your family. There's certain kind of roles that people wear, certain dynamics that are pretty common, and patterns that are pretty common. What is approved of, what's not. And I think you're going to find in there where it is, how it is you got identified and labeled, and why, and that you're actually much bigger than that. And that was never true for you. And it's something you can take off. That attire, that hat, that role is not something you have to hold on to anymore, because it isn't you. You can choose to see yourself with the eyes of truth, with truth itself, as opposed to the illusion. So in so many ways, you're seeing through illusion instead of truth. You're seeing illusion instead of power. You're seeing illusion instead of abundance. Yeah, I feel like, so when we say, who are you? Excuse me, by the way, I do have a lingering cough. If you hear me cough, I do apologize. I will try my best to not do that for the rest of the reading, but there's only so much I can do. So last but not least, I feel like, so we said, who are you and why? So I feel like you see yourself through this filter as this illusion, or through this illusion because of, again, your family of origin, history as a child, trauma, wounding, along those lines, could have something to do with past lives, or even generational familial cycles in your family. There is a healing or a transformation and beginning to speak up and speak out the truth and be your true self, even if it means you're writing it out and saying the words that your child or your inner child now would want to say. No, this is who I am, and this is what I want. And no, you're wrong about me. This is who I actually am. No, you've misunderstood me. That's not what I was trying to say. No, that's not right about me. You're seeing it that way, but that wasn't my intention. That's not who I am. Whether you're saying it out loud or you're writing it, there's some healing here and really defining who you actually are. And you might go through the beliefs that you have about yourself, or this idea or concept you've built about yourself, and go through it layer by layer, one by one, like the Russian dolls, where you're like, okay, what is it but I believe about myself? What is it other people have told me about myself? What is it I believed about myself in the context and history of my family? What has my family told me about myself? Or could be, again, any kind of caregiver, authority figure in your earlier years, and even throughout your young adulthood, or, younger / through older childhood, where people were giving you ideas and feeding you ideas about who you were. And this is your time to take a stand and own that this is who you really are. And other people don't get to tell you who you are, right? And we're certainly not going to buy into the illusion anymore. So there is some healing and some freedom in that self-discovery work of really exploring again and lifting up the hood of the car and picking up the rug and seeing has been swept underneath, taking a look at how your family viewed you, defined you, labeled you, understood or misunderstood you, approved or disapproved of you, exploring each and every one of those layers that comes up in, say, a journaling exercise or a contemplative kind of exercise, and then seeing what is true, what was never true, what you can stand by or understand or are willing to stand by, and what you won't stand for or stand by. And you're going to create your own definition of who you are. And you're going to start living by this. That is the definition that is going to be true to your higher self, to your true self, to your authentic self, the one that is bountiful, the one that is abundant, the one that is big and powerful and all-knowing and all-being. You're going to create a self-definition that can actually, I don't like that term, take up space, but one that isn't true to that illusion anymore, that you adopted, inherited, that again, isn't true and was never true for you, but you believed it to be true. So you're wearing britches that are too small for you. You got to take those off and allow yourself to inherit a sort of ego identity or persona that actually accommodates the bigness and the allness of your beingness. So card pile 1, that is your reading. If this lands for you, I encourage you to like, subscribe, press the bell icon, do share your comments below. I have the Spiritual Mentorship Academy is enrolling now. You can check that out below. We are certifying you as professional spiritual mentors. If you are interested in that program, do check it out. If you want to get to know more about me, my work, my readings, otherwise just go to the website and do check out the other YouTube channels as well. Thank you, card pile 1. Card pile 2, who are you really and why? So right off the bat, it's saying you've been through a time of deep grief, deep longing, deep transition, deep loss. I even feel like soul loss. So and that doesn't have to be as drastic and dramatic and grave as it sounds, soul loss. But that is something that happens pretty naturally, organically as a part of the life's journey here in the third dimension. What can happen when we become traumatized or frozen in time and we sort of lose ourselves or lose connection to a part of ourselves, and we're unable to recapture it, to reunite with it, to reconcile with it, to be as we once were, to be as it once was. Again, there's a part of us that's frozen in time. And I do believe for many of you, it was a loss of innocence in some way. So when we say, who are you really? Number one, we know that you can never lose your innocence. You can never lose your truth. But I feel like what it's speaking to here is that there is a part of you that is frozen in time, could be due to trauma. If you feel like you are going to be triggered by this reading, because this could be something that's relatively potent, make the mindful decision as to whether it's smart for you to continue with the reading. If you feel like you need support, do reach out or work with one of your support personnel. But I did want to offer that before we continue. So ultimately, I do feel like there is a hidden gift in this. We're not there yet, but I feel like there's more to come around the corner. I mean, obviously, usually there's something here that sort of spins it all around or puts it on its head. But it's basically saying, there was this loss of innocence, but it's because of a part of you that, again, got frozen in time, trapped in that space. And now you've lost connection to that part or part of you. And so then you might feel less than you once did. You might not feel the same joyful, alive, vital kind of being, that same zest for life or humor or fun or innocence or playfulness. Perhaps some of those things were lost. A version of innocence altogether. And it's saying that that's still there. That is accessible for you. That might very well be a part of your healing journey, is reconciling with that. Perhaps soul retrieval or getting support from someone who is a shamanic practitioner or an energy worker who can accommodate that kind of service or practice for you or intervention would be worthwhile. Now, it's not necessarily saying go do that, but it does feel sort of on the edges of it. And if it feels necessary or relevant for you, you can do that. But the fact that it's even coming up in a reading to me means it's relatively accessible and probably something, if you aren't in active trauma at the moment, would probably be able to do on your own. You could probably do it otherwise, but I always recommend, if you're not in a place of being able to feel safe or hold space for yourself or do the inner work, you might need more support in order to bring about a shift or a change here. Yeah, so let's see here. So as a result, it's almost like, okay, so I'm trying to see how I'm going to word this. Give me a second. It's almost like if you were able to keep on going the way you once were, there wouldn't have been a problem with it. There would have been nothing necessarily wrong with it, but you would have never gone back to pick up the parts and the pieces that were once lost or forgotten. So it's almost like whatever it is that occurred for you, and this might be a series of events. It doesn't not have to be one big singular event that changed everything. It might be a bunch or a series of things, or just from childhood forward, birth and on, that it was just tumultuous or traumatic or turbulent or whatever. But it's saying that I feel like where you are at now, it's a journey or a quest of going back and picking up the pieces, the things that were lost, the things that were forgotten. Again, is that your humor? Is that your playfulness? It's reconnecting to those parts of you and having to do it in a more intentional way. Meaning maybe these things were once a part of you naturally, organically, just as you were. And now you're actually having to sort of bridge the gap and build a partnership or relationship with that part of you and reconnect with that part of you when it once came naturally. Now it's something you kind of have to work for, dare I say. I don't think we ever have to work to be ourselves or work toward wholeness, but usually intention, if nothing else, awareness as just an assumption. And there's something in, I don't want to say it like this, but like appreciating something when we've earned it, or appreciating something more deeply when we've given it attention, when we've given it consciousness, when we've given it awareness, when we've given it time, we've given it energy. There's something about that. So if we automatically are something, great. But it's almost like people appreciate, for example, people tend to appreciate money more, we'll say, if they've never had it. Or an easier one is if you've never had a very fine meal, like one that's really quality, flavorful, like some of the best food on the planet, well-made food by one of the best chefs in the world, and you've never done that before, that's going to be like, heavens have parted, versus someone who might eat that for every meal every day. Do you see the difference? There's something about when we have to achieve it for ourselves or go back and connect ourselves or whatever, where we don't take it for granted. And there's almost like a renewal and a rebirth, but it is bringing other parts online. Whatever you're moving through, it's bringing other parts online. And there were things that almost like you had to gather in order to move forward. So what I mean by that is, let's just imagine the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z or Z, right? So there we are. And let's say we go from A to D. At some point, life is going to support us to go back to pick up B, C, okay? I was like, did I say the right letters? Or if we jump from A to J, it's going to have us go back and get B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There's something about going and having to pick up the pieces, and there's something important about having all of those in your pocket so that when you move forward, things are different. And what I mean by different is that they feel right, they feel more at peace, things feel more content. It just, wholeness. For the sake of wholeness, there's something more quote unquote right feeling about it. Let's see what else is here. Yeah, it was almost like if you hadn't gone and picked up those pieces, you would have never found the fulfillment that you seek. You would have always been chasing dry wells. You would have always been chasing the pot of gold in the end of the rainbow, chasing the next goal, chasing the next dream, chasing the next status or prestige or whatever, some kind of symbol of success or another degree or another certification or another thing or having another child or getting the new car, more things, all these things to fill the void, to fill the hole. So it was like you were never going to find that same level of satisfaction, fulfillment, contentment, and peace, especially joy, if you hadn't gone back and picked up the pieces and done the reflection work to see what was lost, what's been gained, what's been missed, what's longed for. There was something about going back, and especially, again, if you had missed something, or going back into your childhood to see, because there's something about your childhood here too, that you're going to be, by going on this inner reflection period or this challenging time, whatever it is that created this longing, this grief, this sadness, this ending, this loss, this tower moment, whatever that was that we opened with, there was something about that breaking things open that you could go back and kind of rediscover and pick up what needed to be rediscovered and picked up before you moved forward, before you carried on. Because if you hadn't, you would have never found the fulfillment that you sought and something that was very important to you. You want to feel a certain way. You want to be able to experience a certain thing. Like most humans, we're driven toward fulfillment, whether we realize it or not. Expression, creativity, like these are natural flows that could just come out of us and must be and must become. And if we can't do that or can access that, we're always going to feel a little bit off center, stagnant, off kilter, just not quite ourselves, not quite full, not quite whole. And so you had to go pick up those pieces to move forward. Yeah. So let's see. And part of this is about recapturing your innocence. So let me see what it wants to say here. Innocence. Let me meditate on this for a moment. Okay. So it feels like we say, who are you really? Right. And right now there's a part of you that's pretty sad or pretty broken or feels powerless or helpless or has given up or resigned or has just been in a state of loss. And it's sort of that vibe of purgatory. And it doesn't mean that you always have to feel bad, depressed, or down, that every single day your life's a waste. I mean, we don't have to make it be bigger than it is. When I say the word purgatory, people can be like, what? But it's like that energy of like, I'm sure you can all imagine that depression or it's a suck, it feels sinky, kind of it sinks you to the ground and or even underground. And it's a kind of vibe of purgatory. I've been here for a while. If you think of the movie, What Dreams May Come, it reminds me of the wife. Of course, in her case, it's the afterlife where she finds herself in this sort of semi-purgatory experience. But it's like a part of you might reside there, or maybe you even maybe it is like you, or where you kind of walk around with a cloud over your head and you might even be like, why, or what's happening, or I just want to move on, or whatever. Ultimately, this was about going back into your childhood and taking back what was lost or stolen. So you want to go back, allow yourself to do this healing work, allowing yourself to take the time that you need, allowing yourself to take the space or create the space that you need. Whatever it is, the sinkhole happened in your life so you could go do the digging that you otherwise wouldn't have. It's like an archaeological dig. It's like when you go to do the archaeological dig, they're like remnants from the past that when brought forward, do something for the current day, the present day. It does serve a purpose when unveiled, when revealed. And so you are meant, through this experience, the sinkhole happened in your life where the bottom fell out and you found yourself in that purgatory space, one way or the other, whatever form that took, however long it's been, however long it took, whatever temporary space that was, or semi-permanent, or maybe where you find yourself today. And it's always about going back and picking up the pieces that were once lost, overlooked, neglected, forgotten, abandoned, and taking back what was once lost or stolen so that you can move forward and find that peace, that contentment, that joy, fulfillment that you would have always sought no matter what. So card pile 2, that is your reading. Who are you really and why? Those things were lost or stolen from you and now you're going back to retrieve them. So if you like this reading, I encourage you to like, subscribe, press the bell icon, or share your story in the comments. I do want to let you know that the Spiritual Mentorship Academy is enrolling now for the Professional Spiritual Mentor Certification. You can check out those details below, erritygreen.com/theacademy. Otherwise, check out my other YouTube channels, Wise Woman Television and Psychic True Crime. And I will see you next time. Thank you, card pile 2. All right, card pile 3. Who are you really and why? So there are a few different things coming up, and as it was all coming through, I was trying to sort of bridge the gap and make sense of it into a cohesive whole, and sort of just like all these random parts. I feel like for a while you've been sort of in a dream state. What I mean by that is, of course, I don't think you're actually in a waking dream and or always asleep and dreaming. It just feels like this sort of like liminal phase, maybe a transition between one thing and another, maybe deep introspection, deep healing in the space of the subconscious or the seat of the soul, or that space where we're kind of doing that repair work and reconciliation work and healing work. And again, it's that liminal phase, not fully being out there, but also not fully being out of existence. Clearly, it's like the dream state. Right? Not being fully awake, not being fully asleep, this dream state. Now, I feel like I wanted to connect the dots. Give me one moment. Okay, I got it. So, card pile 3. This is about who are you really and why. So I feel like you, in one way or another, either you've felt held back by life, right? Again, that liminal phase, the in-between phase, the sort of dreamy phase. So it's interesting because when you're in a dream, it's a dream and it kind of feels real. And now lucid dreams feel really, really real, maybe even more real than waking life. But I'm talking about your typical dream, but it feels like not quite real, not quite solid, not quite tangible. So it kind of reminds me of how it's like you'd ultimately want to be in the waking life. You'd ultimately want to have whatever it is you seek, not in a dream, but in your waking life. Again, you feel like this liminal phase, this in-between phase, this transition phase where you are one way or another not getting exactly what you want as you expected or when you expected. And when we say, who are you really? That's going to end up being connected to this in a moment once we get to the other cards. But it's important to speak to this where it's like, I don't know if you've given up, because I do feel like kind of energy too of giving up, of stagnation, overwhelm, exhaustion, just never mind, forget it. I've worked too hard for this. It's been too long. It's been too much. I don't want to carry this anymore. I don't want to carry this cross on my back anymore. This feels so burdensome. This feels so heavy. I just want to let go. And I just want to, maybe even for some of you, kind of disappear. And again, some of you you're like, just forget it. Never mind. It's been held out for too long. The carrot was maybe out in front of you for so long that now it's rotted and you're like, well, forget it now. I don't want it. Never mind. Carry on. Leave me be. But there's something here, card pile 3, and I'm curious as to what this is looking like in your life, like what form it's taking, because I'm not getting specific examples, excuse me, like I normally do. I just feel like you're kind of exhausted with life, kind of over it, just over trying so hard, making it all work, making it all happen. And you're almost resigning to, I guess it's not going to happen for me. I'll always be the person sort of looking out the window at what life I would like to have, but that I'm never actually going to accomplish it. Like I'm never actually going to have it. Again, that sort of that liminal phase, that in-between phase, that transition phase. I feel like there is something that can be revealed to you though. And maybe it's what's happening in your liminal phase. Could also be literally in your dreams, things are being revealed to you. I feel like even your subconscious is sharing something with you, whether it be about the dream itself, what it is you ultimately want, the carrot that you've now sort of given up on, or if it's something about everything that's kind of showing up in your way. Because it could also be for some of you, I don't think this is for all of you, it's very much for just some of you, where it's your own self holding you back. Like you're thinking it's life and you're thinking these things are happening and why, and all these things we already said, like that thought process of it's been too long, it's been too much, I can't carry on, I can't do this anymore. When it's ultimately, that was you putting the carrot out in front of you. It's like you could have had the carrot. You could be holding the carrot. You could have already eaten the darn carrot, but it's actually been you all along. It's almost like you think there's like a bad guy, right? And then you look in the mirror and you find out that it's you. Or again, you look in the mirror and you see that you were holding the carrot out in front of you on a fishing line the whole time. And you're like, wait, what? So there's something here too for some of you about the subconscious holding you back. Meanwhile, you're thinking it's something or someone holding you back when it was actually you all along. So who are you really? Let's see what else is here. Yeah, it's saying you're the one who's apprehensive. It's your subconscious. Your subconscious might be a little bit scared, might be nervous, might be a little bit shy. You might not realize how shy or nervous your inner child is. You might be boisterous. You might be exuberant. You might be big, loud, extroverted. Not all of you are going to be that. Some of you might identify as that. I do feel like this is a far more diverse group than my other readings today. I don't know that for sure, but it just feels a little bit more diverse in terms of I don't get specific examples and it kind of feels across the board. But ultimately, you might not even identify as an introvert. And I say that because it's like your inner child is like way more shy than you would expect, way more unsure, way more uncertain, likes to sort of scope things out, acclimate, really connect with itself, go little baby step by little baby step. And it's saying if that's what you need to do in order to move forward, do that. So it's almost like, it's interesting because you're reading, I'm not getting so much about who are you really and why. I mean, I am. It's saying your inner child wants to move a lot more slowly. Your inner child wants to move in safe steps. Your inner child wants to feel safe and secure as it progresses, as it advances. So that's who are you really. It's like you might think you're like, ready for this big dream and this big vision, this big goal, aspiration, success, this big plan you have for yourself. But ultimately, you've been holding yourself back because a part of you wasn't ready. And so it was almost like your outer adult, we'll say, has run itself into the ground trying to pick up all the pieces and uphold and fix and orchestrate this whole dream into action. And so it's become tired, exhausted. It's like, forget it. When ultimately, who are you really? This inner child who's just scared to kind of come out. And so there is something here about supporting yourself from that space of, we'll say, apprehension or holding back or fear, into that state of openness and willingness, and more of like the fool's energy in the tarot, as opposed to being distant and cautious. Now, it doesn't mean we force our inner child into submission. It means now you know that there's a part of you that feels shy, that feels nervous, that feels unsure, that feels uncertain, that just wants to feel certain, secure, and safe as it advances, as it progresses. And I almost want to ask, and we'll see if we get to it. And if we don't, I can pull an extra card on how that's done, but we might be getting to it. Okay, I can already see it's already answering. So I find it interesting. It's telling you who are you and why. It's not telling us why your inner child is like this. If it could be that you connect to card pile 2, because it talks about a really big reason as to why. If that resonates for any reason, or if you felt called between both 2 and 3 and you ended up landing on 3, or both were calling to you, you might go back and listen to card pile 2. That's not going to be the case for everyone. I'll go ahead and say that right now, because it doesn't feel like a majority. It feels like some of you. But it's saying the more you can support yourself to kind of toggle back and forth between both your inner child and your high true self, right? Your higher self, true self, authentic self, powerful self. Getting to know yourself beyond the small self, getting to know yourself beyond the limited self, getting to know your power beyond sort of the limited human self or human form, being able to toggle back and forth between both. So if you don't yet have a regular practice of connecting to your higher self, your truer self, i.e. meditating or whatever kind of practice, yoga that would support union with your truth, with the truth of all things, with union with nature itself, that might be a practice for you, so you can get to know the ultimate truth, the one truth, as opposed to just feeling small or nervous or whatever. Because what's going to happen is this is going to support your inner child to feel safer. It's going to support your inner child to feel more secure. And something's going to happen, this partnership between inner child and higher self, true self, soul self, whatever you want to call it. There is no hierarchy. Both are divine. There's going to be something that happens where it's like, not only are we honoring the inner child and recognizing its power here and its say here and giving it a say and honoring its voice and its needs, but we're also recognizing who we are ultimately. That yes, we might have this other part of us that feels scared, tender, nervous, but then we have this big, beautiful, powerful part of us that's beyond the human form and beyond anything, fearless, right? And so that's going to support your inner child to feel safer. It's also going to bring back a connection between these two parts of you so that you can move forward in a true state of remembrance of who you are. Okay, that feels relevant. Remembrance. So let me see what else is here for you. So basically what I'm getting is staying completely in your inner child self who's scared and nervous and insecure and uncertain isn't going to do you the best good, because you're never going to be able to. It's pretty darn scared. But the other side of that is if you're just always in your highest self pushing forward like a bull in a china shop, your inner child is going to feel unsafe. And so choosing one or the other is sort of extreme, where it's like, okay, I'm going to be all this or I'm going to be all that. And I don't even think up until this point you're even aware or fully conscious that this is what was happening, or that your inner child was sabotaging and or keeping the carrot out in front of you, so on and so forth. Learning to toggle back. You can be with your inner child and then you can move forward boldly. You can be with your inner child and you can move forward boldly. You can be with your inner child and you can move forward boldly. You can be with your inner child as you move forward boldly. You can move forward boldly as you hold your inner child. So there might be some inner child work here, some inner dialoguing, some inner self, inner work, parts work, support work, self-compassion work to support yourself. I do want to ask though, let me pull a final card, and then I want to ask really specifically here how you can bridge this gap and toggle between both, or build this relationship or this bridge between both and really support yourself to move forward in your wholeness. Well, that was simple. Basically, look, nothingness. So it's like the work is going to be done. We don't necessarily have to understand it. The more you can meditate, tune in, create space for stillness, You might, if you're not in a space for that mentally, or if you're in active trauma or something like that, you might need to get support to do this work. You might need to hire a therapist or work with a mentor or a coach or support system. That's fine. You don't have to, you don't need to, but it feels like the more you can create space in your life, stillness, quiet, peace, where you sort of disappear from the world of form and into the space of unlimited potential or the infinite, it's going to do all the work that is necessary. So it's really at this point just a matter of creating space, meditating, and we even have this card, tuning in. And anything that needs to happen in terms of that healing is going to happen. So whatever needs to be integrated, whatever needs to be done, whatever needs to be supported. And one example that was coming through here is in terms of honoring the inner child as you move forward or progress or advance. It's saying, okay, I know I want to move forward, and how can I do this in a way that takes into account safety, security, stability, feeling uncertain? And then you're going to identify those needs. Well, you know, safety, stability, security of your inner child. And then you're going to ask your inner child, i.e. or yourself, and you can do this in meditation and journaling, how it feels, how it wants to be, or how it wants that need to be met in terms of safety, security, stability. What action steps can you take toward your bigger dream, ambition, and goal, what it is you ultimately want for yourself, that carrot that you've wanted, sort of given up on because it hasn't happened, but ultimately it's been in the control of your inner child who's scared of it, scared of the bigness of it. Well, go back with your inner child then, ask what it needs, ask how to meet those needs, what action steps to take, and or how you can incorporate their needs into your current action steps, and then move forward from that place. I do feel like there's more here. It feels like a well that I could continue to share from, but we are already longer than the other readings. So if this is something that's important to you, do feel free to reach out for a personal reading. And otherwise, card pile 3, that is your reading. I look forward to hearing from you. Do like, subscribe, press the bell icon. That way you receive notifications. I want to let you know that the Spiritual Mentorship Academy is enrolling now for the Professional Spiritual Mentor Certification. You can check out those details below or at erritygreen.com/the-academy. I also have 2 other YouTube channels, Psychic True Crime and Wise Women Television. Join us over there at those communities. And otherwise, I will see you next time. Thank you, card pile 3.